Thank you for welcoming us back. It is so good to be with you here again. And in case you have not caught the news, I am running for governor to serve you and everybody in this state. I got to tell you, we are in the shadow of the George R. Brown Convention Center. And the first time I entered that convention center was in 2017. Like many of you, I came here to see how I could help those who were displaced by Hurricane Harvey. And what I saw absolutely blew me away. The level of devastation, the pain, the suffering, the hurt, but also the heroism. There was a guy I met who didn't have a pair of shoes on his feet because he had worn them off pulling a boat that was tied to a rope wrapped around his chest, up and down his neighborhood street, pulling people out of their homes, putting them in the boat, taking that boat up to where they could get to some safety, until literally the shoes came off his feet and washed away. And there was a veterinarian there who was taking care of everyone's cats, dogs, and birds, and personal pets that they had brought with them. And he met this guy who didn't have any shoes. And so that night on Facebook, he posted a message. He said, I just met this guy. He's an absolute Houston hometown hero. He worked the shoes off his feet, saving the lives of the people of this community. If anyone has any pair of shoes in an 11 and a half, drop them off at my front door. I'll pick them up in the morning and I'll take them down to the George R. Brown Convention Center. The guy wakes up in the morning and there are 20 pairs of shoes on his front door that he brings into the center. I happened to be there while he came in. A very small example of the extraordinary generosity that you all have shown to one another, the example that you have set for the rest of the state, and what gives me so much hope that Texas is going to get back on the right track, start doing the big things again, and being kind and generous and good to one another, because that's who we are at the end of the day. This crazy extremism that folks around the world are reading about Texas right now, that's not us. That's not you. That's not me. That certainly isn't the city of Houston. And so it's on you, and it's on me, and it's on the city of Houston to show Texas, the rest of this country, and the whole planet for that matter, just what we are made of. And I'll tell you what, I was in Kashmir Gardens today, and I was visiting with some folks who lived through not just the winter freeze, that would have been bad enough on its own, but the power grid failure when those in power failed all of us. And there was this amazing woman that I met named Sylvia Scarborough. She is, I hope she's okay with me telling you this, 77 years old. She, by the way, made me promise to come back for Thanksgiving, where she is going to serve me andouille pudding. I don't know if anybody's ever had that. Sweet potato pie. You have had that. And when I told her that I couldn't, I had to be home with my wife and kids for Thanksgiving, she said, bring them to my house. We're gonna take care of you. So the electricity went out for her in February, as it did for you and just about everybody in this community. The heat stopped working. The pipes froze. Pretty soon when it warmed back up again, those pipes burst and they flooded her home. The kicker was her home, of course, had flooded 4 years before in the midst of Hurricane Harvey, and she had literally just finished putting her house back together after that disaster 4 years later, when through no fault of her own, nor Mother Nature's, nor God for that matter, a man-made problem caused by the man in the highest office of public trust in this state. Her house floods again. 13 pipes under her house burst. She said, I didn't know there were 13 pipes under this house, but I found out when it cost me tens of thousands of dollars to replace them. The insurance only covered a fraction. A community organization helped out, and then once again, the people of Houston came together. Everybody chipped in what they could to make sure that she and others who were displaced and their homes damaged by the storm could rebuild them and be okay going forward. When the going gets tough, there are obstacles placed in our midst, we decide to come together and overcome them. That's exactly what Houston did. We put our differences behind us and we get after the work in front of us. We never ask, are you a Republican before I help you? Are you a Democrat before I chip in to make sure that your home is okay? We just want to know that you're a Texan, that you're a human being, that you need some help, and we have the opportunity to help you. That's what you all have shown us, and you have built an extraordinary level of trust in this community between the people of Houston. And I am so proud to be here with you and to see it in motion. Because what we have right now, I believe, in this state is a failure of trust from the person who sits in the highest position of public trust. He simply does not trust Texas. He doesn't trust those who warned him after the grid failures in 2011 and 2014 that unless we invest in weatherizing the grid, this is going to happen to us again. And it did. He didn't trust the people of Texas when they said we want to make sure now that this has happened in February. And we lost so much in our lives, including the lives of our fellow Texans, an 11-year-old boy who froze to death because we could not keep the power on in the energy capital of North America. After all of that devastation and tragedy, the people of the state of Texas said, now please fix the grid. But the governor would not trust us. And instead, he looked to those who owned the gas companies that couldn't provide the supply that we needed when we needed that supply the most. And they rewarded him. One campaign contributor alone, one of these energy CEOs, a $1 million campaign contribution check to Greg Abbott within 1 month of that disaster. And here we are today. And during this week, we learned from ERCOT themselves that they believe the gas companies have been left off the hook going forward. For $150, any gas company CEO is now off the hook from having to weatherize their part of the grid, almost guaranteeing we will see that same suffering going forward. And this is the kicker to this story. Ms. Scarborough tells me, beyond having my house flood again after this power grid failure, I am now going to have to pay more on every single electricity bill going forward, every gas bill going forward. My water bill is going through the roof, all to pay for someone else's failures. It's because the governor doesn't trust the people of Texas. He doesn't trust the voters of this state. He changed the rules of our elections during this very year, made it harder for you and I in a state that was already the hardest in which to vote, to cast a ballot going forward. It might help to explain how last year, despite it being the most consequential election in American history since 1864, more than 7 million of our fellow Texans didn't cast a ballot. And before you get too proud of those who stand in line for 6 hours outside of TSU in order to vote, and I am grateful for them. Anyone who has the fortitude to do that has my gratitude for life. But they shouldn't have to do that. Because after Greg Abbott and those in power in this state have closed more than 750 polling places, twice as many as the next closest state, they've ensured that there are fewer places for more people to cast a ballot. And for every one of you who's willing to wait 6 hours, guess how many people don't have 6 hours in their lives to stand in line? Guess how many people physically cannot stand out there for 6 hours? How many people are working two $7.25 an hour minimum wage jobs and don't have the time to wait 6 hours to vote? Greg Abbott does not trust the voters in the state of Texas. And when police chiefs and members of law enforcement who have one of the most important, difficult, essential jobs that I can think of, begged the governor not to sign a permitless bill law because they knew that any Texan being able to carry any weapon loaded without a background check, without any due diligence or training whatsoever, would put those officers and those sheriff's deputies in greater jeopardy, would make it harder for them to serve and protect those members of the community that they put their lives on the line for each and every single day. And nonetheless, Greg Abbott signs that into law because he doesn't trust law enforcement in the state of Texas. And then there's this. Greg Abbott does not trust women to make their own decisions about their own bodies here in the state of Texas. The most vicious, extreme law anywhere in the land that sets a $10,000 bounty on the head of any woman who wants to make her own decisions about her own body that any American can cash in on. Greg Abbott does not trust the women of Texas. So here's what we're going to do. I can give you a litany of our policy differences, and they are legion. I can tell you every way in which I hope to be a better governor than he has been in the last 7 years that he's been in office. But we're not going to make this campaign about me or any single person or even the political party to which I happen to belong. We're going to make this about all of us here in Texas because we trust each other, we trust Texas, and we trust our fellow Texans. Am I right? And when we trust each other, and we're listening to each other, and we show up for each other just as we have done tonight under this beautiful sky in this extraordinary town in the most diverse city in the United States of America, there is no stopping what we can do together. So here's this vision that I've been hearing from you and other people across the state. And not a single one of these ideas are part of a Democratic Party platform or Republican Party list of talking points. These are all Texas values. What if the best jobs in the United States of America were being created right here in the state of Texas? What if this, the energy capital of the world, was not only pioneering in oil and gas, but also in geothermal, in hydrogen, in the energy transition that the world is leading? Let's make sure that we have pride of place right here in Houston, Texas. That hundreds of thousands of high-paying, high-skill, high-value jobs are being created here in our state and not somewhere else. Or this, what if the best public schools in America were found in our community? Right now, in the average Texas 4th grade classroom, 7 out of 10 kids cannot read at grade level. Right now in that same classroom, that teacher who, out of her own pocket, pays for the Thanksgiving decorations that are now on the walls, out of her own pocket, when that child who earns free and reduced breakfast and lunch does not have a warm meal to go to at the end of the day, she buys that dinner for him. That teacher who right now is working a second or third job to support her habit, the main job that she has, helping to unlock that lifelong love of learning before every child in that classroom. What if that teacher, who today in Texas is on average paid $10,000 less than the average teacher in the United States of America, was paid their full worth so that they could focus on the most important thing, making sure that they deliver the best possible education for the future of this state? What if we did that? And then there's some things that make a lot of common sense, that there's a lot of common interest in, and provide the common ground from which we can do even more. I'll give you just a couple. Expanding Medicaid, which, if we had done at the beginning of the Abbott administration, would have brought in $100 billion to this state's economy, would have further fueled the Texas Medical Center and the jobs that are being created right there, would have brought more doctors to more big cities and more rural communities alike, where 24 rural hospitals have closed in just the last 10 years. It would make sure that no longer does any Texan die of diabetes or curable cancer or even the flu, which happens all too often in the least insured state in the United States of America. What if on day one of the new O'Rourke administration, we take yes for an answer and expand Medicaid in Texas? Or how about this one? And I think, I'm just gonna guess, most of us agree. But what if we legalized marijuana in the state of Texas? So that we're no longer locking up our fellow Texans for possessing a substance that is legal in most of the rest of the country today? What if we cleared up our county jails, got more people back to work and raising their families, and got with the times and did the right thing by one another? These are just some of the big things we can do if we decide that we are going to come together. I know that this state and this country is as divided as most of us can remember. It's as highly polarized as any of us can recall. But that doesn't have to be our future or our fortune or our fate. It is completely up to each and every single one of us to find a way to come together, just like you do in Houston whenever it really counts. Putting our differences behind us and focusing fiercely on the future of this state. I want you to be part of this campaign. I want you to sign up for a volunteer shift, knock on your neighbor's door, and talk about the one thing you're not supposed to discuss in polite company, and that's the politics of the state of Texas. Tell them how important it is. Bring them into the conversation. Y digo que no me importa si son republicanos o demócratas o independientes, son la gente de Texas. Y vamos a hacer todo para servir a cada persona, en cada comunidad, en cada parte del estado. Estamos juntos en este. Please go to our website. It's betofortexas.com. Sign up there. We have less than a year to do the most important work that we can possibly think of right now, and it is going to take all of us. We will put you to work. We'll also gladly accept any donation that you want to make to the cause. And you can also do this. Go to that website and then have that conversation at the kitchen table tonight or tomorrow morning with your family members, with your Republican spouse, with your non-voting son, with those who are not yet fully participating in the process that will decide the future of this state. 7 million, remember, 7 million eligible Texans did not vote last time. We only lost to Ted Cruz by 215,000 votes. Imagine if each one of us took a share of those 7 million and reached out to each one of them and asked them to be part of it, gave them a reason to vote, and then helped them to do it. Are you all with me in this work? Can we count on each other going forward? Well, listen, this is only day 5 of this campaign, and there are this many people out here together. Look around you, feel good about where we are, and commit yourself to the work ahead. I love you, Houston. Thank you for being here today. We'll be up here to take pictures if you want to. Gracias. Thank you all. Thank you, guys.